The Rise and Fall of the Samurai, 700 Years in 10 Minutes. Japan's samurai did not begin as legendary swordsmen. They began as hired muscle. In the Heian period, from 794 to 1185, the imperial court in Kyoto grew soft, obsessed with poetry, ceremony, and court politics. Provincial nobles, left to fend for themselves, started arming private retainers to protect their land. These men were called bushi, warriors who served. The word samurai literally comes from a verb meaning to serve. When the Taira and Minamoto clans tore each other apart in the Genpei War of 1180 to 1185, it was these provincial warriors who decided the outcome. The Minamoto won, and in the years that followed, sources place the exact founding between 1185 and 1192. Minamoto. No Yoritomo built something Japan had never seen, a government run not by aristocrats, but by soldiers. The samurai age had begun. Under the Kamakura shogunate, the samurai stopped being hired hands and became the ruling class of Japan. The emperor remained in Kyoto, a figurehead surrounded by ceremony. Real power sat in Kamakura, with the shogun and his warrior government. This was a deliberate rejection of the old aristocracy. Austerity over luxury, discipline over decadence. Archery from horseback, called kyujutsu, was both a military skill and a spiritual practice. Out of this culture came the earliest versions of what would later be called Bushido, an unwritten code built on loyalty to one's lord, personal honor, and stoicism in the face of death. Then, in 1274 and again in 1281, the Mongol Empire tried to invade. Both times, typhoons scattered the invasion fleets, storms the Japanese called kamikaze, divine wind. Japan had survived its first true test as a unified warrior state. For nearly 150 years after Kamakura, another shogunate, the Ashikaga, held nominal power. But by 1467, that control had crumbled. What followed was the Sengoku period, the Warring States era, over a century of near-constant civil war. Japan fractured into dozens of competing domains, each ruled by a daimyo, a warlord, fighting for territory and survival. This was not a golden age of honorable single combat. It was brutal, opportunistic, and increasingly industrial. European traders arrived mid-century, bringing gunpowder weapons that changed how battles were fought. Loyalty was often for sale. Alliances shifted overnight. And out of this chaos, three men would rise to end it. One by one, through conquest, betrayal, and ruthless political calculation. Oda Nobunaga struck first. A ruthless, innovative daimyo who crushed rival clans and broke the power of militant Buddhist monasteries standing in his way. He never finished the job. In 1582, betrayed by his own general, Nobunaga was forced to take his own life. His successor, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, a former foot soldier born a commoner, picked up where Nobunaga left off, completing the unification of Japan by 1590. But when Hideyoshi died in 1598, leaving only a 5-year-old son as heir, the alliance he'd built split into two armies. On October 21st, 1600, at a foggy crossroads called Sekigahara, roughly 160,000 samurai from both sides collided in what's still considered the most decisive battle in Japanese history. Tokugawa Ieyasu won. 3 years later, he took the title of shogun. His family would rule Japan for the next 250 years. Ieyasu's victory ended the fighting, but it also ended the samurai's original purpose. With Japan unified and at peace, warriors could no longer earn status through battlefield glory. The Tokugawa shogunate responded by freezing Japanese society into rigid classes, with samurai at the top, but with their old freedoms stripped away. Private castles were destroyed. Only samurai could carry weapons. Ownership of arms by anyone else was outlawed. Many samurai became bureaucrats and administrators instead of soldiers, drawing fixed rice stipends from their lords. Foreign trade was tightly restricted, cutting Japan off from much of the outside world for over 2 centuries. The samurai still carried their swords, but increasingly, those swords were symbols of status, not tools of war. This was the Edo period, named for the city that would later become Tokyo. It lasted from 1603 to 1868, and for most samurai, it was a strange existence. Trained from childhood in swordsmanship, archery, and a code demanding readiness to die for their lord, most would never see combat. Bushido evolved during this era from a battlefield ethic into something closer to a philosophy, codified in texts, debated, refined. Some samurai turned to scholarship, calligraphy, and tea ceremony. Others fell into poverty as fixed stipends failed to keep pace with a growing merchant economy. The irony sharpened with every generation. Japan's warrior class was thriving culturally while slowly becoming economically and militarily obsolete. In 1853, American Commodore Matthew Perry sailed a fleet of warships into Edo Bay and demanded Japan open itself to trade. 2 centuries of isolation ended almost overnight. The shock exposed how far Japan had fallen behind militarily, and it split the country's ruling class. Some samurai wanted to expel the foreigners and preserve the old order. Others believed Japan's survival depended on rapid modernization. This tension escalated into open conflict, and by 1868, a coalition of samurai from domains like Satsuma and Choshu overthrew the Tokugawa shogunate itself, in the name of restoring power to the young Emperor Meiji. It was, in effect, one samurai faction defeating another. None of them yet understood they were dismantling their own class. The Meiji government moved fast. In 1871, the old domains were abolished and replaced with centrally controlled prefectures. In 1873, a national conscription law created a modern army built from ordinary citizens, not hereditary warriors. Samurai stipends were converted into one-time government bonds that quickly lost much of their value, leaving many former samurai with worthless paper instead of income. Then, on March 28, 1876, came the edict that cut deepest, the Haitore, banning the public carrying of swords by anyone outside the police and military. For centuries, the sword had been the visible mark of samurai identity. Now it was illegal to wear one in the street. To many, this was not modernization. It was humiliation. Discontent boiled over in 1877. Saigo Takamori, a celebrated hero of the Meiji Restoration, who had grown disillusioned with the new government, reluctantly led tens of thousands of former samurai in revolt. The Satsuma Rebellion. Many refused to fight with modern rifles, choosing swords and spears instead, believing it was better to die by traditional weapons than to abandon what they stood for. It didn't matter. The imperial government's conscript army, ordinary commoners equipped with modern firearms and artillery, crushed them. After months of fighting across Kyushu, Saigo died at the Battle of Shiroyama in September 1877. It was, by every practical measure, the end of the samurai as a fighting class. An army of conscripted farmers had defeated Japan's warrior elite. The samurai class was gone. But Bushido was not. Meiji-era writers reshaped the old warrior code into a national ethic, reinterpreted, romanticized, and in some cases invented outright for a modern audience. That reinvention is part of why the samurai still occupy such a powerful place in global imagination today, sometimes more myth than history. Strip away the legend, though, and what remains is a 900-year story. A class of provincial bodyguards who became Japan's rulers, who built a philosophy out of loyalty and death, who kept an empire at peace for 2.5 centuries, and who, in the end, were undone not by a rival army, but by the modern world they were never built to survive.